Hi, everyone. This is Kylene with Parents for Public Schools of Pitt County, and I'm here with Dr. Steve Lassiter, our Superintendent of Curriculum Instruction with Pitt County Schools. How are you today, Dr. Lassiter?
I'm doing well. How are you today?
I'm doing really well. I really appreciate your time. I know you've had some pretty big meetings today, so thank you for joining us to answer. We had almost 200 questions from parents come in over the weekend, so I think they're very excited that you're willing to do some answering today.
Absolutely. I'm honored to be here and to answer as many questions as I can.
Well, excellent. I do want to just start out with what you just said. You're going to answer as many questions as you can, but I want to make it clear to parents, and I've said this to so many reporters who have called me. This is our first time as parents figuring out life in COVID. And that means that for our school leaders, this is their first time as school leaders figuring out life in COVID. So I want to encourage our parents to be patient and to have a lot of grace and to know that not every question has an answer just yet. But the good news is I have shared every question with Pitt County Schools so they know, parents, what you're thinking about and what your concerns are. And if there's not an answer about it, they're very likely working on it. So I just want to say that before we get started.
That's all right. We're working on
it. Excellent. Well, Dr. Lassiter, I'm just going to start with some categories that have come up in the questions that we were given. One is about registration. So you all sent out a registration form and asked people to fill out, do they want in-person or virtual? And there's a little bit of confusion if someone has changed their mind. Should they fill that form out again, or should they call their school to make a change my mind request?
Well, it would really be helpful to us as a school district if a parent changes their mind, if they would call the school and ask if we could change the preference in the form. What we've noticed is we're getting a number of duplicates. And so we're taking the most recent timestamp duplicate. But the easiest way to do that is for the school to send an email or to contact the principal and just let them know that they would like to change their preference, and we would do it for them on their behalf.
Great. So calling or emailing the school will eliminate that duplicate factor and make work a little bit lighter on you all.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Absolutely.
Excellent. Great. And I think you announced this today in the board meeting and in your video, which was fantastic, and I hope everybody watched it. But what is the deadline to register for whether you want in-person or virtual school this year?
Well, the deadline for our early colleges, Innovation, and Pitt Community College is this Wednesday. So we need their preferences entered into their document by this Wednesday. And July 27th is the deadline for our traditional kindergarten through high school areas. We really need that information, I believe, by 5 o'clock on Monday, July 27th, so that we can begin to make arrangements for learning zones as well as transportation preferences.
Okay, so parents, you heard that. If you have a student at early college, get it in by this Wednesday. Otherwise, get it in by next Monday, July 27th.
That's it.
All right. Now, we've heard that learning zones, which is, I guess, sort of groupings of neighborhoods or areas of Pitt County, some will go on week A and some will go on week B. If there was a family that needed to choose, hey, the A track works better for me, are they able to request that, or is that really just an assignment from the school and then you just got to figure it out as a family?
Yeah, so parents are able to call their school, and if they would like for their children to be on different tracks, that's perfectly okay. They just need to notify the school as to what track they want their child on. We do have parents already saying, I don't want my kids in the same track. I need them separately. And that's okay. So if they would like to, they can call the school and just let them know that I really prefer that my students be on a week, or I prefer them to be on different weeks.
Okay. So again, parents, I think you heard Dr. Lassiter just now. They are, once again, accommodating families in such amazing ways. So if you have a certain need for your family to be on a specific track, to have siblings together, to have siblings apart, just call your school and talk through that with them and let that be an individual basis kind of thing. Now, something that came out this morning, if my family has chosen virtual learning and we change our mind, say on week 3, can we do that, or do we have to wait till the end of the semester?
So unfortunately, we have made the decision that once you submit the form on, or parent submits the form on July 27th. Once that decision is made, that will help us create the learning zones, our virtual classrooms, and transportation preferences. And so we wouldn't have the amount of time to allow parents to change that, because I think after the 27th, we're 2 weeks and school starts. And so we ask that in this time, based on the videos that we put out, based on the information, that parents make a informed decision that's best for their family, because after July 27th, unfortunately, families will be locked into their preferences.
Okay. So this is something that I had a question about from the board meeting this morning. So you mentioned that the virtual lock-in, you would lock in for a semester.
That's right.
But if you're in person and you want to change to virtual, it sounded like maybe you could do that after a grading period.
So that's what we're going to further discuss. That's one of those things that we kind of leave open, that, you know, right now it would be the 6 weeks or 9 weeks that you could opt out of face-to-face to go virtual. We're going to work through what type or how much flexibility we can allow with that. So more information is coming. So stay tuned as we give more information on that. However, we would have to, those individuals and families who choose virtual, it would be a semester commitment. However, Pitt County Virtual Academy and North Carolina Virtual Public Schools, the flexibility obviously would not be there to opt out. Those courses, once you're in them until they're done. So we'll clarify those points as well.
Okay. So just to clarify for parents, you really need to make the most educated decision for yourself right now, and try to think about sticking with that for this semester. There might be some flexibility coming for the in-person, but really for virtual, that's kind of a commitment to a semester. And more information on that to come. Now, I think you're going to say the same thing about this, more information to come, but a lot of people are asking, are the times of school days going to change, and has that worked out yet?
So yes, the school days in Plan B, they will change, and that is to allow for cleanliness of buses, or the cleaning of buses rather, in between routes. And so we need time to do that. So we've had to adjust the school day so that our buses can be cleaned in between, I believe, our elementary routes and our high school routes. So yes, our instructional times and the school day will be adjusted. The great thing is that all elementary schools will be on the same bell schedule, so to speak. Middle school, K-8 schools, and high schools will have the same start and end time. So let me just clarify that again. Elementary, middle, and high school and K-8 schools will have the same start and end times across elementary, middle, high, et cetera, that spectrum. We hopefully will release by next week, early next week, if not this week, the actual start times for our schools. Okay.
So the great clarifying piece there is that all elementary schools will go from time A to time B, and then all middle schools and high schools and K-8 schools will go from time A to time B, whatever that ends up being. And we'll find out very soon what those exact times are, so parents can work out work schedules and all of that good stuff. And then there's a little bit of question about the first week of school. So talk to us some about, there was some mention this morning about elementary and middle school kids maybe going 2 days that first week, and high schools going 1 day that first week. What's happening with that?
Yeah, so we will need a bit of FaceTime for those parents who have opted for the in-person instruction, the face-to-face. We're going to need some FaceTime to get them acclimated, or get students and families acclimated to devices and how the school day will work while they're at home. And so what we're considering, and this isn't anything that we have made any official decision or announcement on, is that if you are in Learning Zone A, you would come to school on Monday and Tuesday and work with your teachers, and in the classroom become familiar with the technology, learn Canvas, learn Seesaw. And then Wednesday would be a remote day working from home. Students would work from home, so they would have assignments. And then Learning Zone B would come on that Thursday and Friday. So that Wednesday would give us time to sanitize the school, sanitize desks, to get things clean for that B group coming in. For high schools, because the semester is much shorter, they would come in on Monday. Learning Zone A would come on Monday, and then Learning Zone B would potentially come on Tuesday or Wednesday. We still would need time for cleaning, etc.
Okay.
So that's what the idea is right now. We're proposing that we do that first week of school for in-person instruction.
Okay. So that first week will be potentially 2 days on, 3 days off, whichever zone you fall in for elementary and middle, and then high school would go 1 day that week and 4 days off, or not off, but not in the building.
Yeah.
And then the following week would start your alternating pattern.
There
Correct?
you go. That's exactly right.
Great. Excellent. And okay, you just brought up a huge issue that parents have been writing me about. I can't tell you how many parents have said there were too many websites in the spring, and I'm one of them.
Yes.
So you mentioned Seesaw and Canvas. Tell us who's using what.
Okay, so first and foremost, we acknowledge that, and thank you, Kylene, so much for bringing that to our attention, as well as we saw it in the data. We heard parent voices and in our data and feedback that they gave us, and so we made the adjustment, and we've made it very quickly. We will be using Seesaw for our K2 students, which is much more user-friendly. It's more app-based, where our K2 students have to just use a press of a finger to access the apps that they need to. And then we're using Canvas. We're going to use Canvas for our students in grades 3 through 12. And they will have Chromebooks, hopefully. We'll give them Chromebooks to access Canvas, and our K2 students will have iPads, as I said, so that it can be more app-based and it's easier to maneuver for our elementary students.
And we heard correctly in the meeting this morning that every K2 student will be given an iPad to use at home and at school, and every 312 student will be given a Chromebook to use at home and at school. Is that correct?
That's exactly right.
Okay. I've had some parents have some glee over that.
Yes, we are excited about it.
Thank you. Thank you for making that happen. Let's see. Okay, testing has been a big thing parents are asking about. Is there any chance, and I know you're not a state person, so you may not be able to answer, but is there any chance the state will waive testing?
Well, right now we don't know. We have been asking that question, and what we've learned from the Department of Public Instruction, the accountability section, is that we are moving along as if we were going to have testing at the end of the school year.
Sure.
To some degree, that is, it helps us as a district to support engagement and to ensure that everyone's engaging and working. However, it does give us a bit of trepidation, given the circumstance, if this is the best time where we should be assessing and testing students to that degree. So right now we're waiting for further guidance and information from the Department of Public Instruction. And so I've informed our curriculum team that we're going to continue just as if we were going to test. So that's the assumption right now.
Okay.
We hear differently.
All right. So you'll keep us updated with all those testing questions. They're not going to stop. They're going to keep coming.
No, not. We're asking them ourselves, so we understand. We're going to keep
Absolutely
advocating.
Okay, so Dr. Lassiter, I think one of the top questions that we've been hearing at Parents for Public Schools is about Plan B and the teacher situation. So a lot of people are wondering, if my child is in school with Group A, they're in person, they have a teacher. They go home the next week and they're virtually. Do they have the same teacher or a different teacher? Talk to us about that.
Yes. Well, it's, as I shared in our meeting this morning, a lot of that will be determined based on school size and what parents prefer. Certainly a smaller school would not have the flexibility of teachers as a large school would have. So it's going to depend on the school, and we may have to utilize teachers from other schools to fill that need of virtual instruction. So as a district, once we get all that information back, that's going to help us determine how we need to staff those who have chosen the virtual option and face-to-face. But ideally, what we would do is, for example, those in Learning Zone A, while they're in school, the Learning Zone B students would be working on modules in Canvas or Seesaw with instruction that is the same instruction that's happening in the school with the other group. And it may be more self-paced, they may have videos to watch, but it would be the same instruction that would happen in the classroom every day. We're working with our principals to sort of set up their own models. And again, once we have that data for registration and what parents want, then we can really paint a clear picture at each school for our teachers.
Okay.
And we don't want
So if this year my third grader is learning her fives times tables in the classroom, her friend who's at home is also learning her fives times tables that week.
That is a perfect example. Absolutely.
Perfect.
So that no one is losing anything, and we're not losing ground with the semester. The first perception was that it would be 1 week on, 1 week off, but there are no off weeks because that would essentially give students 9 weeks in a semester. But we want to maximize 18 weeks of whatever's happening in the classroom. Even if I'm home, I'm still learning. So if I'm learning those threes times tables in front of my teacher, I have modules in front of me while I'm at home teaching those same that same concept.
Okay, perfect. And in terms of the teacher, you know, what I hear you saying, and what I think I heard in the board meeting this morning is that as much as you all are still waiting to find out if students are going to need virtual or in person, you're also still surveying your teachers, and we care that our teachers have some say around their own health concerns and things like that. So you're still finding out which teachers might be in person or virtual.
That's exactly right. We did send a survey out to our teachers, I would say about 3 weeks ago, just polling what their needs were. We know that there are a lot of fear and trepidation around where we are right now with our teachers, and we want them to come back to school and feel safe. We want to implement things that would make them feel safe, and we want them in an environment to make them feel safe. So that is paramount and important to us.
Excellent. Thank you. So before we move on to our last category, which is high school, we have one final question for this category. And that's just around some equity of internet ability. So we know you're giving computers to every student. What are some creative things that are happening to make sure everybody has access to internet?
Absolutely. I'm really glad that you asked that question because I've seen on social media, you know, what happens if I don't have a device? I'm excited to have internet access. I'm excited about having a device, but what about the internet? Well, in our remote learning plan that we are submitting to the state of North Carolina today at 5 o'clock, in that plan, we've laid out resources for families. If they don't have internet access, we have providers who are offering internet services at a discount. And what we are looking for right now in the district is sponsorship. So if there's a family that may need some type of sponsorship, our student services department is really working aggressively to find sponsors. So if there are parents listening to this recording this session now, I appeal and say to you to contact our director of student services or contact your principal and let them know if there is a need, because we do have resources that we can provide and share.
Excellent, thank you. And I'll just say, because Parents for Public Schools is going to be sending this out, Suddenlink is one of our greatest supporters. Yes. And they've been fantastic at offering the Altice Advantage, which is $15 a month for families who qualify for free and reduced lunch. And so, of course, there are also families who can't afford that $15. So this sponsorship opportunity, so I really would love to help push that. But if you are an individual family or you're a business that would like to sponsor internet for a family that needs it this year, I think that's a great opportunity. And I know that Dr. Lassiter would be happy to make that connection, and I'd be happy to make that connection as well.
Absolutely.
All right, so we've got a couple of high school questions. People are real interested in how this is going to work for high school. It kind of makes sense for elementary school. We can picture our kids going and sitting in a classroom, and that's their classroom for the day. It gets a little trickier when we think about high school. Yes. So if high school students are switching classes all day long, how are we limiting their exposure to each other and multiple people and multiple teachers and all the things that make this a little trickier?
Yeah, high schools are very different, obviously, than our elementary. We have a bit more control with those little people than we do our older people. But we also know that it is so important to us that just as those elementary people need FaceTime with their teacher, high school students also need that FaceTime. So what we've implemented, obviously the schools will be at 50% capacity. Teachers will be out supervising and making sure that in between classes, desks are sanitized. Our high school principals will have patterns in the hallway to ensure that, traffic is flowing in the right direction. And to some degree, if necessary, there'll have to be some type of escorting to their classes that they are sometimes, during the traditional year, scattered abroad. So our high school principals, we're going to work with them actually tomorrow and talk about more in depth what are things that we're going to do to minimize contact. Obviously, they'll be wearing face masks, and we'll make sure that they are socially distanced. We'll have clear markers on the floor so that they are spaced apart. But we're going to do all that we can to make sure that they are safe and that they are following social distancing rules that we'll have in place in our high schools.
Thank you. I know that's going to be a lot to put together, so I'll go ahead and say thank you to our high school principals for everything that you're doing to work out those details. And then a lot of people have questions with high school, and I'll be honest, I haven't wrapped my mind around it, as they are in classes that change, and they're in several different classes a day with lots of different students. How does that work with an A-B schedule? Again, it makes sense for an elementary or a middle school class, but I think it becomes a bit more convoluted when we know that they're changing classes throughout the day, and now they're going to change by the week.
Absolutely. That was a question that when we first began to talk about A-B schedule, how do you do it how does this work for high schools? And it could be, this is an example, that a week could be first and second period, or we could look at it by splitting the alphabet and looking at it by periods. So there are a number of ways that we're still looking at it and making sure that it works for our principals. Again, I hate to continue to say this. We're talking more in detail tomorrow with the logistics of exactly how that will work for high schools. Because you're right, it's going to be very different from elementary and middle, because high school is just a different area. It's just very different.
It's a whole different picture. Well, again, thank you to our principals who are working out those details. It's really a lot to work out, and a lot of thought has been put there. So I'm going to end by just saying that one of the biggest questions that continues to come up on the Parents for Public Schools page, and people are contacting us about, is students who identify as exceptional children or have 504s or IEPs. There's a lot of questions about that. And so can you address that at all?
Absolutely. One thing I want to start by saying is to put parents at ease that the services will still be delivered if your child has a 504 or an IEP. That is something that we'll work through, whether it's virtually or whether they're attending in person. The instruction and the support for those students will continue. Our Director of Student Services, as well as our Director of Exceptional Children, have a fantastic plan in place. And Kylene, I'd be happy to allow them to share on a session the things that they have in place. But I don't want any parent to think that those services will be denied or limited or non-existent, because by law, we have to provide those services, and we're going to continue to do that, and we're committed to doing that.
Thank you. I know a lot of parents feel a lot of reassurance from hearing that. Parents, I do just want to say that I know that questions were submitted not only about students who identify as EC, but about a range of topics that we may not have addressed today. And so what I'd like to say is that my hope is to schedule some more question and answer sessions with folks like the Director of Student Services and the Director of EC Services, maybe something with pre-K folks. And just to get more information. But again, we've got to be patient as parents and recognize that our schools are still figuring this out. And so hopefully all of you watched the amazing video that Dr. Lassiter made earlier today. It's a quick 4-minute video that tells you exactly what's happening with Plan B. And it's my understanding that more of those will be coming. And I hope to schedule more of these question and answer sessions. So if your question was submitted and was not answered today, again, I shared all of your questions with Pitt County Schools. They know your concerns, and so much more will be addressed in the coming days and weeks. Dr. Lassiter, thank you so much for spending time with me today. It's been an absolute pleasure. And again, we are grateful that all of our schools are doing to navigate this experience and make it the best experience for parents and students.
Absolutely. And thank you for having me today. And I will be open to answer any questions that parents may pose. And I want families to know that we understand concerns and fears, but we're going to do our best to take care of your little ones and big ones as they return to us in the fall.
Excellent. Well, thank you and have a great rest of your afternoon.
Thank you. Take care.
All right.